When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Deborah Casey. I'm a member of the Sunday Services Committee, and I'd like to welcome you all to this service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. We are so glad to see each and every one of you this morning, and we join together to make this sacred time. Whether you're a seasoned participant or you're joining us for the first time, we welcome you. For those of you that are new among us, we'd invite you to introduce yourself and where you're from in the chat as you are comfortable doing so. Whatever the faith and tradition of your past, whatever your theological stance, whatever your heritage, whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. You can learn more about us on our Facebook page and our website, and we invite you to share our Facebook page with others, particularly those that might be isolated at this time. After our service, we invite you to stay with us in breakout groups to get to know each other better. We do have a few announcements this morning. If you are new or newish, there's a Sunday Connections gathering with Reverend Heather directly following the service. This is an informal get to know you session where you can ask questions and share your experiences. The link for the Sunday Connections Zoom gathering will be posted in the chat at the end of the service. And for those of you that are interested, I will remind you when that chat is there. Furthermore, young adults, you're going to meet today at 12 with Sequoia Lowe, and you can contact him at the email posted on screen and also in our order of service. There will be a Common Council meeting today at 4:30 via Zoom. And finally, if you have not had the opportunity, please join Samantha McCoy for the Black Lives of the 20th Century workshop, which I've heard is fantastic. And that's tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And Samantha's contact information is posted on the screen. It's also in the order of service. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury, where we welcome all in the spirit of compassion, inquiry, and service.
Thank you, Deb, and good morning, everyone. It is so good to be with you this morning. Perhaps because of the snow we're expecting, at least in Connecticut, and the fresh, quiet blanket over our world tomorrow that a beautiful snow can bring. I woke up this morning with such a deep feeling of well-being, and I wanted to share that with you today. The feeling that, in Arundhati Roy's words, another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. So as we arrive here into this online place of gathering and breathing and connection together on this last Sunday in January, I feel like it's been the longest month ever. May we feel ourselves still at such a beginning, still living into this new year, still finding our way. With that in mind, here are some more opening words. These are by Reverend Steve Garnass Holmes, words for finding our way this day. Begin with gratitude for all you have received, that you see and that you do not see. Let your gratitude grow into trust that you are included in a great wonder, and entrust yourself to the grace you are given. Let your trust blossom into compassion for all those who are also part of this oneness, who have been excluded, used, or targeted. Let your compassion flourish into solidarity, knowing you are one with those who suffer and that their wholeness is part of yours. Let your solidarity bear fruit in justice, working for freedom and fullness of life for all, against all evil and oppression. And when you are most challenged by the forces of injustice, most weary and discouraged, return to gratitude that you are guided, accompanied, empowered, and saved. And entrust yourself to the undying love of all, the love in which we are all held. Please bring a candle or chalice close by now and join me in lighting your chalice and then in our chalice lighting words. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another and celebrate life.
Good morning. It is good to be together. If there are children and youth who are in the room but not near the screen, I invite you to come over for the children's affirmation and a story from Reverend Heather. While you're on your way over, let me remind you that during coffee hour today, when the adults go into breakout rooms, if you come to the religious education Zoom room, we'll have our own time for sharing and trying out a spiritual practice. I do still need a second adult for today's sharing circle, so if one parent could be present with us, that would be great. The link is in your email. We do not have a learn a skill workshop today, as we did not have a youth available to lead one, but we are continuing our collection of supplies for the Women's Center of Greater Danbury. You can either pick up supplies or organize a community, your neighborhood, your sports team, your scouts, whoever, to collect new cleaning supplies, toiletries, baby wipes, diapers, and formula. We'll have a supply drop off on February 14th from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Adult congregants are also welcome to drop off supplies during this time. Before we say our words of affirmation, I invite you to take notice that an additional line used in some congregations is newly returning to ours. Reverend Sunshine Wolf brought this line to us as a guest preacher to use the week they preached back in November, and it is making a comeback on kid request. So when we get to the line, we care for the earth, we'll draw out an earth shape with our hands. And then when we say each other, we'll extend our hands outwards toward the community around us. Please join me now in the children's affirmation. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other.
Love it. Thank you, Sierra Marie. Our story this morning is The What Ifs by Emily Kilgore, illustrated by Zoe Persico. I became aware of this book through a Hartford congregant's daughter doing the design for it. So you may have to go to a little extra effort to find it, but it is a lovely book and I highly recommend it. It's from Little B Books, Little B Books. The What Ifs. Cora was a nervous girl, always jumpy, always on edge, always wondering if something grim was going to happen. Because of this, the what ifs loved her. Heavy, lumpy, and grumpy, the what ifs are everywhere, in bright rooms and dark corners, in busy hallways and hushed libraries, in big cities and small towns. They slink in from unknown places and swiftly attach themselves to people when they least expect it. Then they whisper a question so quietly, so softly, so gently, that the person usually doesn't know the what ifs are there at all. From the moment the sun first peeked through her window in the morning to the time she pulled a warm quilt over her head at night, Cora's what ifs followed her every move. What if my dog runs away? What if I forget my homework? What if the sun stops shining? What if my crayon breaks? Many people think about their what ifs for a moment or two, but can quickly brush them off. Cora, though, could not. It didn't matter if the what ifs questions were silly or frightening, likely or impossible. As soon as Cora thought about them, the what ifs grabbed hold of her. One week, Cora had more what ifs than usual. Her piano recital was just days away. Even though she had practiced and perfected her song, the what ifs started creeping in. What if my fingers shake? Cora questioned on Monday. What if I make a mistake? Cora wondered on Tuesday. What if nobody comes? She thought on Wednesday. What if too many people come? She worried on Thursday. By the day of her recital, the weight of the what ifs felt unbearable. Cora stood backstage, anxiously awaiting her turn to perform. The longer she waited, the more what ifs appeared, each one grabbing hold and weighing her down more than the last. What if I trip on stage? What if the bench is too tall? What if the pedals are squeaky? What if I start coughing? What if I play the wrong note? What if nobody claps? Cora? A small voice whispered. Are you all right? Oh, great, Cora thought. What if Stella thinks I'm a crybaby? What if she doesn't understand? It's nothing, was all Cora could muster before a tiny sob escaped her thinly pressed lips. It doesn't sound like nothing, Stella said. Cora took a deep breath and said in a hushed voice, I just have too many what ifs. They make me imagine bad things that could happen. Like, what if I mess up? Or what if I sneeze during my song? Everybody gets what ifs, Cora. Just a minute ago, I asked myself, what if Cora's sad and I can help? Listening to Stella, Cora started to wonder, what if she can help me? What if I can trust her? I wish mine were like that. My what ifs are grim, Cora looked down. Do you ever have good what ifs? Stella asked. I didn't know there were good ones, Cora whispered. Of course there are, Stella said. Like, what if there's chocolate cake after our recital? Or what if I play better than ever? Cora chimed in, peering at the boy pounding his piece on the piano. Cora suddenly felt her what ifs begin to change. The heavy, lumpy, and grumpy what ifs slowly slunk away, while new ones arrived in their place. Just then, the teacher announced it was Cora's turn. Cora walked out to the piano without tripping. The bench was just the right height. Her hands quivered as they hovered over the keys. But then she sat down and began to play, and the grim what-ifs slowly continued to disappear until, clunk, she hit the wrong note. Oh no, what if everybody laughs at me? What if I get booed off the stage? Cora wanted to cry. She tried to ignore the people staring, waiting for her next move. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Cora saw Stella. What if I can do this? She asked herself. Cora took a deep breath and started to play again with confidence. Her fingers danced across the keys. When she finished, the room filled with applause. Cora took her bow and smiled at Stella. She couldn't help but wonder, what if I made a new friend today? And they're also enjoying some chocolate cake, my kids and I love to observe. There's another page that I didn't take a picture of an author's note by Emily Kilgore about her own childhood struggle and adult struggle with anxiety. And so I just share that note with you in case this is something you want to look for and find for you or someone in your family. It's really a lovely one. Let's see. Next, we get to share our own lives and how we're doing. So that may have brought up something you realize you've been holding on to. Let us move now into our time of sharing and connection. Please write in the chat those personal milestones that are lifting up your heart or weighing it down today. And please do reach out and offer your support or affirmation to each other, whether by chatting with everyone or privately. Either way is totally fine. In these so much online times, it takes a little more effort to truly understand what is going on behind and beyond each other's screens. So please do let each other know how you are on this day.
It is now time for our congregational offering. If you're a guest with us, we invite you to pass the plate. Your presence here with us today is your gift to us. Members, you know what to do. You can share your gift by clicking on the link that will be posted in the chat. You can also send a check to UUCD at 24 Clapboard Ridge Road. I'm so looking forward to the day when we can return to 24 Clapboard Ridge Road. We thank you so much for doing your part to support and sustain this community we love. Now, if you'll join me in our congregational response. In the spirit of compassion and service, we dedicate these, our offerings.
Thank you for that, Jerry. Oh, there is so much to be said on the topics I'll attempt to touch on today, so much more than I can cover in a reasonable amount of time. And so I wanted to start out by simply acknowledging that I will only scratch the surface here today. Here are some things to think about and some ways that I've found to think about them. May these thoughts and stories be thought-provoking and spirit-nourishing for you too. And especially for this topic today, I wanted to start out with some moments of lightheartedness and levity with you, not unlike Jerry's rendition of Let It Snow just now, embracing our impending winter storm. I inadvertently found myself listening to a particular kid's audiobook recently, Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney, which I do not recommend. This snippet, though, which must at least be partially drawing upon reality, gave me some insights into one place our adult anxieties and paranoias can be seated, our own families. The narrator and main character, Greg Heffley's older brother, Roderick, lied to him so much over the years, he says, that it could take me the rest of my life to figure out what's true and what's not. Roderick told him things that got him in big trouble. When I was in second grade, he writes, he said that if a person wears camouflage, they're actually invisible to everyone else. That one got me banned from the town pool for the rest of the summer after I put on camouflage, snuck into the girls' locker room, and tried to blend into the wall. Another time, Roderick told me that if I dug a hole in the backyard and put all my birthday money in it, a tree would grow and I could get cash from it whenever I wanted. That seemed like a pretty sweet deal to me, so I did what he said, and I even watered it twice a day. But when I told Mom my money tree wasn't growing, she got a shovel and dug out the hole, which was oddly totally empty. Sometimes Roderick would tell me something that actually could be true, and that's when things got confusing. He told me once that if a person sleeps with their mouth open, they'll eat an average of 5 spiders a night, which is kind of believable if you think about it. Oh my goodness. So if that was anything like your childhood, then I can understand why you might be a little extra cautious, extra skeptical, extra wary. We all grow into our adult lives wanting to avoid the pain and embarrassments we experienced as kids. And once we do start questioning what others are telling us, well, there can be so much to question, it's enough to make you into a Unitarian Universalist. But where do we draw the line within ourselves between the lowercase general term feeling paranoid and the more clinical reality of capital P paranoia? Mental Health America describes one form of capital P paranoia as delusions, when irrational thoughts and beliefs become so fixed that nothing, including contrary evidence, can convince a person that what they think or feel is not true. With our younger child, I am sometimes reading to her lately about letters like big C and little c. And so am mindful this morning about a similar distinction between the big C conspiracies we keep hearing about in the news and the little c conspiracy theories we may find ourselves inadvertently entertaining without even realizing it. The big C conspiracies are the ones we see referred to daily these days. QAnon, Alex Jones, gun rights groups that go so horribly far as to argue that heartbreaking mass shooting events, some of which some of you are all too intimately familiar with, were staged. Just in Friday's Hartford Courant, Representative Jahana Hayes is quoted on this precise topic. Each time a baseless conspiracy theory emerges, questioning the legitimacy of the mass murders in Sandy Hook and Parkland, Florida, among others, and questioning the memory of the many lost loved ones, the wounds of those impacted by the violence are reopened. Heartbreaking, infuriating, and exhausting. I would also put in the big C conspiracy theory category the ones that most of us can easily dispel, sometimes with a momentary blessed chuckle, that the earth we collectively live on is not a sphere, but an infinite plane, for example. We have to be mindful, though, of not slipping into ridicule, and I'll post a link later in the service after I'm done talking about ways to interact with family members that you may have or friends in your extended circles who have gone down the conspiracy theory path, and ways to not find yourself just getting stuck in being ridiculing. There are ways in which the prevalence of conspiracy theories these days, backed up by the infinite sea of alternative news sources that is the internet, is affecting us all. Therapist, writer, and activist Jenny Correa writes, "Conspiracy theory addiction is now classified as a behavioral addiction that can have a hidden impact on the way we all perceive events, and has been linked to having more negative attitudes. Rather than helping one cope with negative feelings, the belief in conspiracy theories can ultimately create a cycle of distrust and disempowerment." The little c conspiracy theories concern me even more because of the ways they can leak into our rational minds and cause us all to be more distrusting. In October 2020, Michael Moore promoted the conspiracy theory that former President Donald Trump was faking his COVID-19 diagnosis. Even as we as a country desperately need to get the COVID-19 vaccines out as rapidly as possible, damaging myths linger that vaccines cause autism. And our minds can be so geared towards conspiracy expectation these days that intentional disinformation campaigns can get a lot of traction, such as those that purport that activists who use the phrase Black Lives Matter are part of some international underground plot to overturn the US government. Instead, Black Lives Matter is an intentionally decentralized political and social movement, which its intentional decentralization has made it vulnerable to some of these intentional disinformation campaigns. It is an intentionally decentralized political and social movement protesting against incidents of police brutality and racially motivated violence against Black people. I don't have it right here on hand, but please do take some time to read Alicia Garza's powerful recent book, The Purpose of Power: How We Come Together When We Fall Apart. If you have any confusion about Black Lives Matter or its origins and realize you need to know more, you would benefit from knowing more, look for Alicia Garza's book. It's the little C theories that can creep into our minds almost subconsciously and cause us to doubt, challenge, question, or undermine one another's good efforts, even here among this congregation now and then. Let me share with you something about me. I was raised in a family where my Uncle Skip was a clinically diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, actually actively a part of the family gatherings throughout my childhood. He would do things like bring small briefcases with rubber lizards inside them to Thanksgiving and take out charts to show me how reptiles were going to take over the world and how the planets were going to align to annihilate us all, most likely on May 5th, a date that just happened to be my mother's birthday. I was 8, 9 years old when I would find myself on my grandmother's love seat listening to his theories. Somehow I was silently taught by the rest of my family, we have to keep on loving each other as flawed human beings while remaining really clear about what is and is not true. The search for truth and meaning, which we affirm in Unitarian Universalism, also has to be done in a manner that is responsible, the responsible search for truth and meaning. So how do we counter our own human and truly somewhat Unitarian Universalist tendency towards skepticism and paranoia, sometimes under the umbrella of being free inquiry, and also intentionally restore our reservoirs of trust in ourselves and one another? One crucial thing we can do these days is get offline and look around at what is tangible, solid, and true, right in our immediate neighborhood. I went for a walk yesterday in the middle of the day, and I was just stunned by how blue the sky was. The sky was so blue. And then I came home and was telling my kids about how it's not actually a plate of blue up there, it's a refraction of light. And so even the sky is blue, right, is not necessarily a tangible, concrete fact that we can point to. It's how it looks to us due to the reflection of light. Anyway, may have been a little over their heads, but it was fun to try to explain. It is somewhat miraculous, for example, that so much of our lives has been able to pivot into a shelter-in-place mode this past year. We have found ways to be in large groups of people as little as possible, and so many aspects of our day-to-day lives are still functional, even while this country we share records over 400,000 deaths from COVID, by far the most of any country in the world. And yet we press on. We are a resilient people. And in that daily resilience, I believe there is trust in the goodness of life. Here are some other examples of situations in which ordinary people have found ways to live with love and a sense of purpose, rather than being controlled by their fears and worries. On September 11th, 2001, you will mostly remember the tragedies. But amidst the horrors we watched over and over on television that day, the Federal Aviation Authority cleared the skies of nearly 4,500 planes carrying 350,000 passengers in just a few hours. 75% of those 4,500 planes landed within the first hour, more than one landing per second. It was an unprecedented feat for the agency, one that had not been simulated since the end of the Cold War. And it was the first day on the job for the top FAA official who gave the initial order to clear the skies. Controllers had to land these planes while also staying vigilant for signs that any other planes had been hijacked. They succeeded through intense cooperation, absolute focus and dedication, and because they made decisions locally, including some that were outside of existing policies. In the months following, officials started to try and capture this astonishing feat in new procedures, but then they scrapped the idea. A lot of things were done intuitively, things that you can't write down in a textbook or you can't train somebody to do. Since then, the FAA's policy and plan for preparing for another crisis of unknown dimensions has been to rely on the judgment, intuition, and commitment of its controllers and managers. Their plan is to believe in one another's good judgment, intuition, and common commitment. That story is from Margaret Wheatley's most recent book. She was called in to consult with them as a leadership consultant and marveled at the way they had found to trust in their collective judgment, good judgment, intuition, and commitment. Some of this trust in our ability to deal with challenging situations has, I hope, been restored in you as we all reflect together on how much change we have handled this past year, this year of pandemic pivoting. We have been through so many pandemic chapters this past year that it can be easy to forget, but I urge you to take the time to remember the blessings. Remember all the masks people of this congregation sewed in the first weeks and months of this thing. Remember all the phone calls and emails the Caring Ministry team has made and sent. Remember all that we have all learned about how to use Zoom and how to run errands in new ways and how to ask for help when we need it. I talked to a colleague yesterday who, even though he describes this past year as awful, also said that every day he writes down some blessing of this time that he might not otherwise have experienced or noticed. Remember the blessings. Here's another story that inspires me again and again, far beyond the pandemic period. This one of George Tiller. Some of you will remember George Tiller. He was an abortion provider in Wichita, Kansas. His whole story is profound, and I'm only going to share a bit of it today. Former Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards recalls, George Tiller was beloved. For several years, he provided abortions to women from all across the country, particularly women who needed to terminate late in their pregnancy. He dealt with some of the most medically complicated cases. The walls of his office were papered with thank you notes from grateful women he treated with dignity and respect at one of the most difficult times of their lives. George was known for his Tillerisms, mantras and sayings that he lived by and shared with others at every opportunity. It's never the wrong time to do the next right thing. Or, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And most famously and succinctly, trust women. Trust women. In the years he'd lived in Wichita, he and his family had faced unimaginable threats to their safety. He had been the target of some of the most hateful, violent extremists. But Dr. Tiller was clear. He defined his work as saving women's lives and giving them freedom to determine their futures. We have made higher education possible for women we've served, he said in a speech. We have helped correct some of the results of rape and incest. We have helped battered women escape to a safer life. We have made recovery from chemical dependency possible. We have helped women and families struggle to save their unwell, unborn child a lifetime of pain. Few of us here in this sanctuary have experienced anything like the public harassment that George Tiller lived with for decades. George Tiller had every reason to be paranoid, anxious, certain that people were out there plotting against him, evidenced only in part by the fact of his ultimate death. He was shot while standing in the foyer of his Lutheran church while greeting members and friends on a Sunday morning. But Dr. Tiller chose to stay positive. It must have been a spiritual practice for him. These days, I think it is for all of us. And so I ponder along with you as we continue into 2021. What freedom do we have? What chances do we still have to clarify our purpose, to focus our energies, and to soulfully practice pushing aside the voices, doubts, and anxieties and paranoia that we could so easily allow to hold us hostage? To listen for the positive what ifs percolating in our hearts. In the face of irreversible global problems, Margaret Wheatley writes, who do you choose to be for this time? Are you willing to use whatever power and influence you have to create islands of sanity? I love that phrase of hers, to create islands of sanity that evoke and rely on our best human qualities to create, produce, and persevere. What opportunities do we here still have in our lives and communities? And some of those opportunities are new because of the way we have pivoted in this pandemic. What are you doing to intentionally build up trust in yourself and those around you? Especially those of us who are lucky and privileged enough to live in fairly comfortable circumstances, even during these long months, can ask questions of one another and not rush to the conclusion that anyone is out to get us. We can decide to believe in one another's good intentions and judgment calls, even when we don't know and may never know the whole story. What keeps coming back up for me is that even in the face of tremendous harassment and constant, literally physical assaults, Dr. George Tiller chose to be a cheerful, enthusiastic, respectful, and gentle person. Trust women was the Tillerism that was written on display boards at his 2009 memorial service and on handmade posters people held up at vigils following his death. Attitude is everything was his own favorite Tillerism. I have it written on a Post-it here on my laptop. And it was printed on the buttons many of his community wore on their lapels. At his 2009 memorial service, Tiller's daughter Jennifer said, just last week, Dad and I and his grandkids were at Disney World. I'm so glad we had that time with him. He loved it, and we went on every ride. We do not all have the strength to deal daily with such incessant personal attacks, but we can choose how we respond to the stresses and worries in our lives. We can choose where and how and to whom to offer our energy and give our focus. We can choose to focus not on the intricacies of the latest bizarre Big C conspiracy theory, not on what might or might not happen for any of us individually at some point in the future, but on the actual human beings with whom we still interact in this strange new era. I heard a public health worker in North Dakota say on the radio this past week, with fatigue, but also hope in her voice, I don't know what normal is going to look like, but I look forward to finding out. Attitude is everything. May it be so. Let us move now into the spirit of meditation and prayer. The Unitarian Universalist Soul Matters Collective crafted these words on trust. We gather here in Zoom, even here in Zoom, to receive the blessings of trust. May the relationships in this space, still sacred, even while online, help us notice that we do not move alone in and through this world. May the quiet we share help us connect to and trust our deepest selves. May the music we've heard here help us feel and hold tight to the restorative rhythms of the world. May the words offered remind us that we too have a voice, one that must be trusted and shared. Join me in soaking in a few deep breaths of silence, of gratitude, of trust in one another, of determination to look for the goodness in all things. And then let us sing together along with Jerry, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
It is now time for us to extinguish our chalices. Please join me in our shared declaration. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Our closing hymn today is Soon the Day Will Rise.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunderclouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreams, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and our vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not to sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
Chris, will you please keep that slide up there just for a second? There is a typo in this, which if we were all looking at our hymnals, I would invite you to pull out your pencils. But of course, we're so beyond that. But I just want to point it out, maybe for Jerry to write in his hymnal. In the second verse, it is their vision that remains in our hearts. It's the second line. Some have dreamed, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and their vision remains in our hearts. So I am on one of those rather petty lifelong pursuits to try to correct things in our hymnals, and that's one of them because it's so important, especially this year. All the beloveds we have lost, their vision remains in our hearts. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. In the words of Reverend Gary Kowalski, may we leave this service today and go about our days wherever we are with faith to face our challenges, with love that casts out fear, and with the hope to trust tomorrow. Jerry introduced me to a singer-songwriter new to me this week, Scott Allen. In this beautiful song you'll hear in a moment are these lines. When the warmth disappears, as it has these past few days, when it's been one of those years, when you're running from the truth because you're scared of what you might find, when your heart's beyond repair, when you wake and no one's there, when your home consists of only you, is there anything worth holding on to? I will still be holding on to anything worth holding on to. No matter what challenges may feel overwhelming to you, may you keep holding on resolutely in peace, sharing your love and creating justice.
Lately it seems I've lost inspiration. It feels like it's miles away. I sleep through the day, I cry through the nighttime. I'm caught in an empty space. It takes effort to fight. I don't have the strength. I'm holding on to what's still left of me. When the life you had planned slowly slips through your hands, when it feels like you just slept through all the best years of your life, when you can't find your way, when each day feels the same, when you've lost the fight inside of you, is there anything worth holding on to? It's hard to be strong when weakness is stronger. I'm a prisoner in my own skin. I'm not good on my own. I need to be cared for. someone to help these days begin. There are dreams I've let die that I just pushed aside. I need to find out how to turn the dark back into light. When all warmth disappears, when it's been one of those years, when you're running from the truth because you're scared what you might find, when the heart's beyond repair, when you wake and no one's there, when your home consists of only you, is there anything worth holding on to? Maybe tomorrow my heart will reawaken and I can find what I've been searching for. But today I'm tired and I'm running out of strength. All I know is I can't live like this anymore. When you're so far from home and you've lost all signs of hope, when you're searching for salvation, but it feels so far away, when the words have disappeared and the melody's unclear, and there's nothing left inside of you, is there anything worth holding on to? 'Cause I will still be holding on to everything worth holding on to.
Thank you, Jerry. What a beautiful song. Wow. We are now going to move to our post-service breakout rooms. Some of you are going to be joining Reverend Heather in the Sunday Connections gathering. And that link, I believe, is going to be added into our chat. Let me just make sure that it is there. Yes, Margaret is on her game. All right, so those of you who are going to be joining Reverend Heather, you can actually go ahead and access that link in the chat. And then for the rest of us, we're going to actually head out to our breakout rooms. They're going to go on for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together for a short reading. If there's someone in your room, in your breakout room that you don't know, please take this as an opportunity to get to know them better. And in a very short minute, you're going to be seeing your link to head off.